until it says like 2 on the
I
countdown or
will
something.
say all the bad things about SpongeBob while we're waiting.
Just coming in spicy.
Yeah. About
Coming in
SpongeBob.
spicy.
Hello, everybody.
What?
Welcome to the 60-Day Novel Challenge, a weekly live show with your wonderful trio of hosts today, Abby, Hank, and
It's a
myself.
live show.
How are my friends doing today?
Fantastic. How are you?
I'm awesome. I'm glad to be here. This is like my highlight of the year doing this challenge. So when we get to hop on here and chat about what is one of my favorite topics, especially this week, because we're pulling in stuff from
SpongeBob.
last week that I'm already excited about, not SpongeBob. However, we could do a critical analysis of the stories in SpongeBob if you want one day, Abby.
Just saying, it's short attention span theater. So,
hello everyone. The chat is already a bumping, so I don't even think I can go back and get everyone with any kind of confidence. But I see Bon and Ella and AR and NJ and Shelly and Rachel and Berlin and Susan and Aaron and Sarah and Bernadette, and I'm getting them. I'm doing it. Shannon. Hello everybody. David's here as well. Hello. And let me keep
Beth
going.
is here. She said in all capital letters.
Awesome. Hello. And Manny's here. And Ashley's here. And Stephanie's here. Shelly, hello. I think I got everyone. Athena, hello. Amber, the Jeff, which is Jennifer,
Jen.
right? Yes. All right. Yeah, Jen is here. Amber, hello. Okay, awesome. We have a great show lined up for today. And we will be talking about conflict and subplots today. And if you haven't already checked out the lesson from this week, all about it, I suggest you go and do that. Like, you can pause this and go and do it, or you can watch it afterwards. Entirely up to you. But it is on our channel here on YouTube. And seriously, if you are not subscribed already and didn't see it on Monday, then you best hit that subscribe button, because we are going to keep pushing out super valuable content all throughout this challenge. That's weekly lessons on Monday, weekly streams just like this one, and daily tips, all until the end of November. Just the sheer volume of that content is overwhelming. Hank, I saw him rub his eyes there.
I told people at the end of sprints just a minute ago that if you're enjoying October, November off the charts.
Yeah.
Like a rocket. We're
because
taking off.
in November, we are doing Monday through Friday daily sprints, just like we're doing Tuesday through Thursday now. It's Monday through Friday, so that we can get those words written. And then if you were to join us over at dabble.com at W Campus, you'll see that people are organizing their own sprints at all hours of the day and on weekends for you to get your writing fix in. It's fantastic. It's awesome. I saw, and I just see, this is not, apropos of nothing really, but Beth posted, I just read Dungeon Crawler
Easy for
Crawler,
you to say.
Carl. And so the reference that Beth makes there, I don't get, but that book is on my shelf waiting for me to read when
That's the one that made
it.
me so mad. Like, so mad when I got to the end, because I was always taught you have to end the first book of a series. Like, you have to end it. You have to wrap it up somehow. No. And they did not. They just went to another level of the dungeon.
Spoilers,
and it
though.
was like
mid-sentence. This is a hallmark of lit RPG.
It's gotta be.
There are no tying things up in a pretty bow. They're just.
I said bad words about Matt Dinian as I finished it, because I was like, well, now I have to pick up the second one. And then I was so mad. And I was like, it's brilliant. But at the same time, I was like, no, because they're so long.
All right. Before we talk about the topics from this week's lesson, Bernadette's asking, I think that referencing the lesson was the world building one. Yes. This week was about conflicts and subplots. World building we touched on in week 1. So there are 3 lessons up right now. There's the high level plotting and world building, and knowing your genre. Then there's characters from last week, and this week is all about conflicts and subplot. And then Athena's asking, will there be a full day sprint this year? Would love one of those. Had to miss last year's. We don't have an exact date for it yet, I don't think, but we're gonna make it happen. It's too much fun for it to not happen.
Of course we are.
I've been like dragging my feet on asking you guys which day so I can set it up because I don't want to do it, but the rest of y'all do.
Well, you know what? We did it without you last year, Abby, and we'll do it again.
I'm just saying I wouldn't be sad.
All right, let's talk about what we mentioned in the lesson this week and what is in your template for the 60-day novel challenge this week. There's actually only 2 steps before you get to the refine and combine part of it, where you add everything and mesh it with the stuff you've been creating so far in October. And the first step is conflicts. The second is subplot. But don't let that deceive you, because those are 2 very big things, especially the conflicts. Now, I guess before we get into that, Abby, I know you're working on Stu the Duck and maybe getting pulled towards other things too, as Jeff pulls you to other things. But Hank, did you tell me about, in your planning for your 60-day book, what kind of conflicts are we looking at? Or did you have any like fun moments when you were planning them? Have you had any aha moments about conflict? Lay it on me, and then we'll go to Abby and we'll talk about conflicts in Stu.
Which is gonna make you laugh.
I mean, my entire book is conflict. It's
as books be.
It's you know, I think as we elucidated last week, it's all about internal conflict that spills out into the external world, or almost like the external conflict is a metaphor for what's going on inside Stu, and as he wrestles with his little, you know, tiny heart trying to grow up to be a man. You know, it starts with internal conflict of Stu trying to, I feel like I've said all this before, but trying to earn his place in the world and earn the love of his to-be wife, and you know, and then out of that, you know, kind of struggle, he's trying to you know, write the great American novel, and he's not having very much success, and then he literally stumbles over a dead body, and then, you know, that's conflict. And then he's at conflict with the local police department because he's a bit nosy and they want to solve crimes the proper way, and Stu wants to start a true crime podcast and, you know, air everybody's laundry and all of that. So he literally is at conflict with the entire town. In the beginning of the book, he begins it being in conflict with himself. By the end of the book, by 3/4 of the book, he's in conflict with every person in the town, and then he has to try to land that plane somehow. So yeah, I mean, I'm going big for conflict in this book.
Awesome. Now, can you give us a sneak peek at all? Is there any moment in particular where you think, okay, I'm doing this to particularly pick at his internal conflict? Like, can you give us one thing you want to do to make him feel real bad about himself as he goes through this?
Oh yeah, because you know, in the beginning, he's in conflict with himself, but everybody else thinks he's a pretty great guy. Like his girlfriend owns this used bookstore, and he has a table in the corner where he kind of holds court every day, and he's writing his book, but he's also talking to everybody that comes in, and he's invested in everyone's life, and he's kind of a part of everybody's. He's just Stu. He's just always there, and he knows about everybody. He knows everybody's family and all that. But by the end of it, he has accused everyone of any substance in the town of committing this murder, and he's done it live on a podcast that goes out to the entire world. And so, you know, the big conflict is that he's beloved by everyone, just not by himself. And by the end of it, he's hated by everyone, but he's learning to love himself.
I like that. A little reversal there. I dig it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And hopefully by the end of the book, he redeems some of this, but who knows? I mean,
I love that he's like publicly calling everyone out on the podcast.
That takes some
no shame.
Guts.
No shame. None, because he gets so wound up in it that he believes the hype, And then, when the next week's episode comes out, he has to issue retractions and try to. Yeah.
Awesome. Abby, before I ask you about yours, I just see, I don't want to call it a mutiny going on in the chat, but
I know, I saw.
A crowd work asking for the Midway Marathon halfway through November. I've written it down. So we can chat about that. Also, Bernadette was asking about world building, and then says that you confuse it with the Academy, W Academy World Building Wednesday, which totally fair to mix them up. And for anyone who doesn't know, that's referencing W Academy, which premium Dabble members get access to, or you can purchase access separately from a Dabble subscription or without a Dabble subscription. And every month we have a big old article lesson that goes up in W Academy about a topic of world building. One of my favorite things every month, because I just get to nerd out about something and then write a lot about it. And it's a lot of fun. That's just one of the things that we do in W Academy, though. But sorry, Abby, I can't help but shamelessly plug the coolest thing in the world, the Academy. Please tell us about conflict in Stu.
My Stu lost his lunchbox. I'm sorry. Despite Ma Jones telling him not to, he loses it. But I did like we did a cohort sprint just before this. And I actually during the sprint wrote half of my outline. So I did pretty good for this new book. I went from 0 ideas to I got the outline half done. So I didn't do too bad in sprints today, you guys. Maybe that full day sprint isn't looking too shabby now, but at 10,000 words, I might just finish my whole ding dong book during the sprint. So
may I offer a suggestion?
Yeah.
Get that duck a podcast.
I need to get that duck a podcast. Well, he's trying to sneak into the grocery store. So, and there's no ducks allowed. So that's the biggest part of the conflict is Stu always wants to do things that ducks aren't allowed to do. And so he's trying to get into the grocery store to sample tiny cheeses on toothpicks. He loses his lunchbox in the process, but helps the bag boy find his name tag. So the bag boy lets him in. That's
I thought you said the bad boy.
No, the bag boy at the grocery store.
Yeah, I get it now.
There's no bad boys in my story. Well, there's one in the first book. He's a bully, but whatevs. So, yeah, a little different. My conflict, people, is a little different.
But hey,
I mean, Hank's got murder. I got lost lunchboxes, which is a big deal if you're a kid, by the way. Murder. I mean, did you ever lose your lunchbox as a kid? And were you scared to death that your mother was going to have a fit when you came home?
Mm-hmm.
Just saying.
I had a $6 million man lunchbox. Ooh. That was.
I had Care Bears, original Care Bears.
Stop it. Doug, $6 Million Man was a TV show from the 70s.
I know what the $6 Million Man was, Hank. Just because I wasn't alive when it was on doesn't mean I'm ignorant.
I had a Bionic Woman beach towel. Do you know that one?
Stop it.
I don't know if I know that one, actually. I mean, I can guess, but
I'll tell you what, the pinnacle of 70s cinema was the $6 Million Man versus Bigfoot. I'm sure there are clips on YouTube.
I mean, forget King Kong versus Godzilla.
Yeah. We got a question from Facebook here. Tom is asking, I just got Dabble. How do I get on this challenge? And for that, I'm going to send you to w.com. That's W Campus. And there on the left side of the screen, you're going to see the 60-day novel challenge and something that says, start, join here, I think is the exact phrasing of that header. And that'll walk you through it. And then you can link it in your Dabble trial that you have. Or if you are a subscriber, then, your Dabble manuscript, whatever one you want to use. And that'll get you started on it. We have a whole template and everything with exercises going through week by week. And we are in week 3, but that doesn't mean you can't catch up and do the work. Especially next week, we're doing a lot of planning. Or I guess a lot of bringing everything that we have planned together and making it more cohesive. For myself, for this week, I actually went back yesterday during sprints and did a lot of character fleshing out for my secondary characters specifically, and that got me thinking more about the timeline of my conflicts and how I want to connect the internal and the external, not just for my main character, but for my antagonists as well, because they have their own internal conflict that, while I don't want them to be like sympathetic villains, I want us to be able to understand why they're doing what they're doing, even if what they're doing is shape-shifting into clowns and murdering people. See, a nice spectrum of conflict up on stage.
You should have given him a clown wig too, the duck on the podcast. Then all three of them would have been there, Hank. Missed opportunity.
And for mine, the main antagonist is Stu the Clown. So we have a Stu in each book going on here. But let's quickly talk about the stuff from the lesson earlier this week, starting with conflict. I mean, when it comes to conflict, we have two different kinds of conflict, and they're each umbrella terms. Each of them have different conflicts underneath them that you can leverage on and understand better and apply to your story. But our big ones are external and internal conflict. And I always describe, and I think I might in the template as well, but if not, I have on stream, external conflict as the sexy conflict. It is the conflict that sells books. It's the conflict that people get excited for because it's the thing that's happening in the story. It's somebody, going for a big promotion at work and changing their life, or it's someone going on an epic quest to find a ring in a mountain, and though there's a dragon there. It's the stuff that happens and presents obstacles. But then there's the internal conflict, which is the fight that the character has within themselves. It's them trying to overcome something inside that is stopping their progress. And there's a lot, we dive into it in the template and in the lesson earlier this week. So I'm not just going to reiterate everything, but what I will reiterate is something that I've said who knows how many times this challenge in my life so far. The internal and external conflict, they work together, right? They are not one and the same, but they do not exist without the other one. Without internal conflict, external conflict is meaningless. Without external conflict, internal conflict, it just exists. There's nothing to challenge it and make change. So you need both for your protagonist for a compelling story. Now you can have internal and external conflict for other characters, and that's where we get into subplot. But I don't want you getting too distracted from the actual story that you're trying to tell. Because if you're following along with the 60-day novel challenge and we're writing a 50,000 word novel, you don't have a ton of room to explore different external conflicts and a ton of internal conflicts for other characters. You have room to do a little bit. And I don't want to discourage you from writing more than 50,000 words, either in November or beyond. But just be aware of how much real estate writing a story takes. And when we don't have a lot, we're really focusing for this challenge on the protagonist. Okay. That said, I want to know, well, first, I should say, if anyone has a question about conflicts, about subplots, anything from this week, anything from past weeks, please drop it in the chat, and we'll flag it along the way so that we can answer it in the Q&A section at the end. But Hank, Abby, do you have any thoughts you want to lend to this discussion on internal or external conflict? Do you have anything you want to add that we haven't talked about so far before I keep rambling here?
I love your rambles, Doug. Hank,
do you love my rambles too?
I love your rambles. As Robert Plant said, ramble on.
Oh, he did indeed. So let's I'll spend a couple minutes then just talking about those two conflicts, and then we can talk about subplots and any subplots we might have in our stories. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of subplot in Stu the Duck, but there might be.
There's not.
There's not.
So
okay,
thanks for asking. There's not.
I didn't think so. I didn't want to be exclusionary. Yeah. So when it comes to internal conflict, one of the things we're talking about next week, this is how everything ties together, is theme. And the internal conflict that your protagonist faces often has to do with the message that you are trying to tell with your story. because through the actions of the protagonist and those people around them, you are going to prove some kind of point that you are trying to make here. And that point might be that everyone is worthy of love. It might be that we're stronger when we work together. It could be any number of things. And you'll learn more about theme next week. But that's why internal conflict is so important, because it tells us something. It makes the story more than just the sequence of action that is happening on the page. And it also shows us growth in the character. And that development, this is where character development comes in, that makes it a heck of a lot more engaging. One of the things that I'm actually really struggling with, and I'm leaning into this idea of internal conflict more, is that my character has a flat arc in this book that I'm writing. And that's tough for me because I want growth, I want change, I want something to, like, I need that, right? And as a reader, you need it as well. Which is why I've been devouring the Dresden Files so much, because those are flat arcs. Harry doesn't really change from book to book. He learns some things, he maybe adopts a different attitude, but he's still the same old wizard detective from book to book, right?
But it's still about the internal and the meaning that gets made as he goes along. So that's just where you put your focus instead of on the growth piece.
Exactly. So it's less about growth, more about change, more about learning, more about things around them changing as well, and their perspective on things changing. So if anyone is writing a flat arc, this is all leading up to me saying there's no excuse not to have internal conflict, even if there's a flat arc. It just doesn't necessarily lead to massive growth like a positive arc does, or massive dissent or corruption like a negative arc does.
Okay, we got a couple questions, Doug.
Okay. Oh, yeah, let's tackle some now before we go into subplots or any further into this.
Okay. Oh.
It's just Afro. Let's do the clown duck. We're just blending books here.
Question: does my conflict plan work that my three main characters all have roughly the same external conflict, but different internal conflicts?
Okay. I got thoughts, but I've been yapping. Yeah, I can go for it. Okay.
Keep a yapping.
Okay. This is going to sound like semantics, but I'm going to force people to think about semantics here, because we use the term main characters and we use the term protagonist, and they sometimes mean the same thing, but they don't always mean the same thing. So your protagonist of the story is who the story is about. It is their external conflict and their internal conflict, and the external cannot be resolved until the internal is resolved, positively or negatively. Okay? It is that resolution, that aha moment, or that really sad moment at the end, that makes the story come to a close in the climax with some resolution after, as the story does. So when you say, Beth, that you have three main characters, you still need to distinguish who is the protagonist and who is just a very important secondary character who still has their own internal conflict, who still has their own journey that they go on, and who still affects the external conflict, the big overarching conflict that, makes the plot.
Just to clarify, by main character, Beth, you're probably writing in 3 POVs, correct? But even if you're writing in 3 different POVs, there's still one person who's sort of the main person that the story is really about.
Yes.
And that's what Doug's talking about.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I see there have been a couple questions like this in the community as well. And I see this question all the time, because just because a story or a scene or multiple chapters are told from a character's perspective does not mean they're a protagonist, right? They are still a very important character. And especially in like fantasy or sci-fi, your bigger genres, like volume size bigger, you're going to get a lot more perspective, so you can explore the world and so you can look at different things happening in the story. But that does not a protagonist make. So when it comes to Beth's question here, you can have 3 characters all pursuing the same external conflict, but 2 of them are really supporting the internal journey of one of them. Okay, and that's your protagonist. And the other ones can still have their own journeys. They can still have their own change and growth. But that is not what the story is about. The story is about one of them. So if that's the case, then yes, it completely works. They can all share that same external conflict.
So like, I know in the book Wonder, which is a middle grade book that has lots of different points of view, it's still about Augie's story. It's one kid's story. I'm going to ask this question knowing that I'm probably opening a can of worms. I'm going to admit something. I have never seen nor read Game of Thrones, but that's another one of those huge tomes. Whose story is Game of Thrones?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, Hank, go ahead, please.
No, I was going to say yeah. No, I want to hear what you have to say about this.
Okay. So I haven't read Game of Thrones either. I tried reading the first one. Fair. And keeping it as safe for work here as possible. I was put off by the fact that everyone's like 12 years old and doing the dirty.
You think?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, no, this ain't for me. I still remember it was a beautiful sunny day. I was literally sitting under a tree. This is when I was in school. And I'm like, this is I'm so cultured. Look at me go. And I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
Next.
And they're all related too, which doesn't yeah.
But when it comes to that, that's where we get into the idea of fantasy sprawling a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to understand that secondary characters in something like epic fantasy can have their own storyline that does not touch the protagonist storyline directly for like 7 books, but their actions indirectly affect the protagonist as well. So based on the show, and maybe we'll get some feedback in here.
I'm waiting for David to like pipe in. That's what I keep waiting for David to just tell us the answer.
Based on the show, it would be like Jon Snow would be the protagonist.
That's the only name I know. So that was going to be my gut reaction.
Okay, I've read the Game of Thrones books, the Song of Ice and Fire, of Ice and Fire, and it's hard to tell who, but because it's almost like multiple books woven together. So each point of view has a protagonist, if that makes sense. Like it keeps changing points of view, giving you a glimpse of different parts of the kingdom. And it's like each one of those has their own protagonist. And I think his goal by the end is to have woven those together, but we're not. I was going to say,
true.
The last book is probably going to answer the question, right?
Yeah.
So we'll just put a pause on this.
Yeah, and then the TV show ended in a particular way, and none of the fans liked it, and I don't think that was George Martin's intention. So who knows at this point? But I still stand by the fact that I think it reads like multiple books, multiple stories, and each one of them have their own protagonist. And I think ultimately some of those will wind up as tertiary characters, and one will be the main protagonist. But we don't know yet.
I'm really sorry I asked because I expected there to just be a real clear answer that was going to prove the point, and then we were all going to move on. And
no, George R. Martin is just ruining this for us.
Well, and
sorry, everyone.
And this is another conversation for another time. But this is kind of a nihilistic fantasy series where I don't know that there is a traditional protagonist, because everyone's kind of dirty and kind of, like, I don't know.
Yeah. And what bothered me a lot about the show going through it is like at the start, okay, Ned Stark's the protagonist. Nah.
Yeah. Until he loses his head.
Robb Stark is the protagonist until no more throat. And then you have, like you said, Hank, other characters who have their own storyline that is separate from everyone else. So I'm thinking the show. Arya goes on her own adventure, becomes this assassin, is separate from the vast majority of the cast for the entire series, and then comes back, pulls a fast one on the villain, that the whole last season was a mess. But I still don't think she's necessarily the protagonist. I think that her actions supported the journey of other characters, and she had her own internal conflict, her own journey that she went on, but I still don't think she's the protagonist. But I think we also need the last book to come out. This one, I'll provide an excellent example.
Look what I got on today. Hitchhiker's Guide.
Boom.
Yeah, we leave Arthur Dent for long stretches too, but he's arguably the protagonist.
Can I offer one comment on Beth's question before we move on?
Sure.
I was thinking when I first read the question, I was thinking of a completely different scenario. There's a subgenre of books, kind of the disaster thriller or whatever. And as specifically, I watched a documentary not long ago, so this was kind of top of mind. But like 9/11, there was a book, and I think they made it into a movie, and I can't remember the name of it. But it was kind of a day in the life, if you will, of these people that went to work, and then the planes hit the tower, and all of these people. So they all had the same external conflict. They were at work, and an airplane hit their office, and then you got a glimpse of all the stories of their internal conflict, of what their fears are, and how they were never going to be able to resolve this or that, and people making phone calls and trying to make last minute amends. And so it was this kind of a microcosm of everybody stuck in this office. A giant external conflict hits the building, and then everyone is scrambling to kind of tie up loose ends while they can. So that's kind of a really zoomed in approach to the external conflict and internal, but that was just what immediately came to my mind, if that helps at all.
So there's also, it is possible to have multiple protagonists in a book, right? That there are books out there that have multiple protagonists. And I worry that a lot of people are getting hung up on this idea of who's my main character, who's my protagonist. I have 7 protagonists, I have 17 antagonists. I don't want anyone getting bogged down in that. Rather, I want you to focus on defining your conflicts and how they interact with one another. So you need to come up with at least 2 conflicts for the protagonist, for your main character, and you'll need to come up with more than that if you have multiple protagonists. And those are the external and internal conflicts. And the order that you come up with those in is up to you, but they should go back and forth with one another. So if the external conflict presents us with this goal of killing the evil wizard who has usurped the throne, that's our large scale goal, and we're working towards that. And we have hordes of the undead in the way, we have evil knights in the way, we have people loyal to the wizard in the way. Those are our external conflict goals, or obstacles, sorry. Then we have the internal conflict that the character has themselves. And this does not have, like, this can be anything. This can be that they don't think that they're brave enough, that they're a coward, for example. And if you go with that, then their internal conflict is going to put them on a journey of realizing their own bravery. And you're going to use the external conflict to put those obstacles in the way, to intentionally test this lie that they have. This is from their backstory. Test the lie that they have that's telling them they're not brave enough. So you're continually going to put them in a place where they are faced, where they're given a opportunity to show their cowardice and run away. And sometimes they're going to do that, and they're going to feel really bad after it, but they feel compelled to do that because their cowardice has kept them safe. But then you're going to give them other opportunities where they're forced to be brave because they have to save a friend, or they have to save a kid that's about to be eaten by a zombie or something. You give them these external obstacles over and over again that push against their lie, and sometimes the lie brings them back and holds them and keeps them safe, and sometimes they reject the lie and push themselves a little bit forward until they get to the climax where they ultimately reject their lie, they embrace the new truth, and then they can be successful and kill the evil wizard king. Okay? That's where these 2 things come together. And if you can successfully do that for multiple characters by layering internal into external, then go ahead, have multiple protagonists. But most of the time, you're going to be having secondary characters assisting one character in that bigger journey. So that's all I have to say about conflict. But we have a lot of questions coming in. But let's talk about subplot real quick, because that was step 2 of this week's template. And this one, like, I was reviewing the material for this one. And first off, Hank, any subplots for Stu? Or in, maybe not for him, but in the book.
Yeah. Subplot is his girlfriend's reaction to all of this, and how there's strain in their relationship because of what he's doing to the town, and whether she is going to be is going to ride along with him, or if she's going to have her business ruined because Stu is hacking off the whole town. So that's all I've thought about so far. And there's going to be some, as he kind of resolves the red herrings, or the miss, the clues that don't pan out, then you'll have the subplot of having to resolve those relationships and things like that. But yeah, I haven't gone into a lot of detail with subplots yet, but
that's fair. You got time, and
I've got time. Also, I'm thinking through that this weekend. I'm trying to finish out my full outline this weekend, so I'm looking at side quests and what I'm going to have room for, and what needs to wait to book 2 and stuff like that.
You also, and this is less for Hank and more for everyone watching, you don't need to figure out all your subplots ahead of time. It's good to think about some of them and how you can leverage that into your story to make it more compelling. Yeah. But some will pop up as you write. Like, things that you want to explore will pop up, and things that you never thought about will pop up as you're writing. Yeah. Right? So Abby, we know Stu the Duck doesn't have any subplots, but do you want anything you want to say about subplots, or anything you want to pull from any of your previous writing about subplots that particularly interest you?
I'm not really good at subplots. Like, I'm just going to throw this out there. I think the last time I really tried to weave one in, my developmental editor told me she got whiplash while reading it because she was never really sure what anyone wanted at any one given time. So I can't say that I'm really a good expert to have here. Most of my books have been pretty straightforward. I mean, because I'm aiming for about 40,000 words, not saying that you can't have a subplot in there, but I've really just always stuck to one sort of main straightforward line. But I've also written for the low end of middle grade for most of my books. And so, I try not to get too complicated. Not that you can't, you absolutely can. But I think I'm just not a real complicated person to begin with. So I tend to just focus on one thing that they want. So if you don't have one, I guess that's the moral of this story. If you don't have one, don't feel like you're the only one, because you're not. You're in the boat with me.
Mm-hmm. So. Well, and we say that in the template as well, like 50,000 words, if that's what you're aiming for, it's not a lot of space. Like, I think I suggest, let me tab over to it. I think I suggest maybe going with one subplot, if any, in that. Now, if you're using the challenge to write 50,000 words of a longer book, then you should be thinking about subplots. Because once you get to like 80,000, 100,000, 200,000 words, if you don't have a subplot or 3 in there, then it's just a lot. That's just a lot of one plot without other things making the world and the characters and the theme come to life. I saw, hold on, I asked if someone's refreshing here.
I did, yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. So so I see a bunch of questions coming in about subplot, and one of the ones that I started that I want to answer first, and then we'll talk about the stuff from the template, is this one from Rachel. What is the difference between subplots and the plot of a story? So the thing that I just got to rant about for a while there is your plot. That is the external conflict and your protagonist's internal journey throughout that conflict. That is the plot of your story. And honestly, if you're just trying to describe the plot of a book, you're probably going with the external conflict rather than touching too much on the internal one. So it's, someone falling in love with their high school best friend when they go back to their small country town because their CEO sent them there for a marketing something or other, right? Every Hallmark movie that I'm about to watch for the next 90 days. It's it's going to overthrow the oh my goodness, what did they call the big bad guy in Mistborn?
The Lord Ruler.
The Lord Ruler. It's going to overthrow the Lord Ruler and then other stuff throughout the series. But for the first book, it's overthrowing the Lord Ruler. Though that's the plot. But then the other stuff that happens that has its own conflict and storyline within the book, those are subplots. So relationships are usually subplots. Arguably not in romance because like the relationship is the plot between the two love interests, but other genres, other relationships, those are usually subplots. Secondary characters having their own goals and pursuing those goals are subplots. You guys think of other examples of subplots off the top of your head? I'm drawing some blanks here.
I was going to say in a YA romance, you have the main romance plotline, but you might have like, I don't know, there's some other trouble at school, or there's a friendship trouble, or there's a conflict between your parents, or there's another underlying thing that helps to drive the story forward, but it's not the major thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Hank, anything come to mind for you?
No, I was just gonna go with Abby that usually there's a relationship thing that that is a good way to bring in a subplot. Well, while this thing is going on, that usually causes some tension, or there's also tension somewhere else that's competing with that, or appears to be. So I usually look for things like that.
Yeah, and if you turn to our 60-day novel challenge template, we don't have someone in the community, I can't remember who, asked if we have a subplot template in there to fill out, but rather what we have are a couple different options for you to think about, to brainstorm with, to come up with things that might make for good subplots. So amongst those, we have personal goals that your protagonist has that is separate from the overarching goal that they are trying to pursue for the external conflict. Any unresolved issues or motivations from their backstory that you can pull up again and add some drama with. Things you want to include to reinforce the theme. If you have a specific theme in mind and you're trying to reinforce that. Conflict-based subplots, so just more conflict in there, things that arise that you can turn into some kind of juicy conflict, can lead to their own subplots. And then the biggest one in there are relationships, and relationships being romance, being siblings, friendships, rivalries, enemies, teachers, any time you have somebody interacting with somebody else, you have a relationship forming or degrading or reinforcing, and you can use that as fodder for a subplot.
We got a couple people wanting Doug's opinion here. Will this work? Okay. Rachel wants to know main romance main plot, finding love with reincarnation. Subplot, female male main lead. What's main lead, finding their place for being different and or finding lost parents.
Yes, perfect. Okay.
Absolutely. Here's 100%. Another one. It's political theme. My subplots include prejudice against witches, romance between Ren and Maz, and Ren's desire for human connection.
Political theme, like, okay, the main plot is some kind of political scheme, maybe, or political, like politicking. Yes, because the theme is not a plot. But I think the conflict is political. Subplots include the prejudice against the witches. That's like a topic to expand into a subplot. So you show that, but then what's the subplot has to have development. Otherwise, it's a world building detail in that case. So is somebody trying to change people's minds about the witches, or does that prejudice lead to them being persecuted, and that leads to them, going to jail for a little bit, or what have you? Romance between Ren and Maz, yes, subplot. And then Ren's desire for human connection is almost more like a theme topic that you would use to fuel a subplot. Okay. I like that. I like this kind of rapid fire example thing. So more come up, please.
All right. You want to pick the next one?
In the template. Let me just say this last thing. What we do have in the template is if you come up with subplot ideas, instead of doing the full like plotting exercises that we've been doing and thinking about all the different plot beats that you can have in like the 3-act structure, which is what we'll be using next month, I say just condense it to 4, because that's normally what you have in a subplot. You have the introduction, the rising action, the climax, and then the resolution. Okay, so the tension or what have you is introduced for the subplot. Things happen that make it progress and regress. It ultimately comes to its climactic moment where it gets resolved before the climax of the book usually, but sometimes they happen in tandem. And then the fallout or the benefit of that resolution is added into the story. Okay.
Right.
Sorry.
Are you in the starred list right there?
I'm not in the starred list.
I've got 12 questions in the starred list.
12 questions in the starred list. Okay. We're 45 minutes in. We're about on par with last week. So
sorry we spent so much time on Game of Thrones.
Yeah. All right, let's do it. Also,
you want to start at the top?
Hold on.
All right.
FML was meaning for something very different in my head. Yeah.
I had to pause when I started to say it out loud because I was like, wait a minute. All right. Did you pick a question? I thought you did.
You guys pick.
I was just going to start at the top and work my way down.
Okay. Yeah, do it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
All right.
And as we're going through this, feel free to add more questions, folks in the chat.
All right. Here we go. Question. Sarah says, my external conflicts feel weaker than the internal ones. So how do you, I'm guessing the question is, how do you like pump that
How do I change that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I've been yapping so much and I'm happy to yap more, but I feel rude doing it. So
Hank, you want to take it? Because I'm like, you just got to be meaner, right?
My external conflicts feel much weaker than my internal ones. So are you looking for like how to balance those or
how to make them less weak, stronger?
Or I mean, like, can I ask this? Like, maybe your book is one of those books that is more about the internal conflict and the external conflict isn't really, I mean, it's there because you have to have something happening to make it a story, something to challenge your character to have that interior journey. But maybe yours is one of those stories where the emotional arc is the stronger piece, correct? I mean,
yeah,
that's
I'm really
thing,
glad you
right?
said that, actually, because like I write things that have change and internal growth and theme and whatnot, but I'm also writing for the sword fights and the magic and the monsters.
Not
right?
everybody is.
Yeah, exactly. And some people, especially if you're writing literary fiction,
Book club
all internal
fiction,
conflict. Yeah.
Women's lit.
Yeah.
And really, I mean, think about most of the romance stories out there. I mean, the world isn't like about to blow up. I mean, no one is fighting with swords or guns or things like that. I mean, there are such thing as quiet stories where, so Sarah, I don't know what your premise is or what your genre is, but I mean, I'm going to argue that it's possible that that's not necessarily a bad thing. Mm-hmm. Hank, you got...
I was just going to say that the more I sat here and thought about it, the books I write are almost all about internal conflict, and even the science fiction stories with big space explosions and world eating guys really cause my protagonist to deal with his daddy issues and stuff like that. So I mean, external conflict is really the way I use it is a catalyst to make him look inside and deal with himself. So I don't think that's a problem at all. I think your internal conflict is, I mean, like Doug said, that he's he's doing the personal growth, but he also wants to have sword fights and all that. But I would venture to guess that the sword fights and stuff are there to prod that internal conflict. So
most of the time.
I'm trying to be
Except the
generous,
occasional sword fight.
you know,
Yeah,
yeah,
do as I say, not as I do.
yeah.
I
don't see a problem with it, is what I'm saying. You know, that's
yeah.
Sarah also added the challenge doesn't feel like
Oh.
it would push the characters into the conflict enough. So this is, I'm gonna tack on my 2 cents here, because if this is the case, then can we put the original question back up? Have we unstarred that?
Oh,
It's fine. It's fine. The
I
external
unstarred
conflict
it.
feels weaker than the internal conflict, right?
Mhm.
So the issue with that, the issue with having an external conflict that's too weak is that it doesn't do enough to test the internal conflict, and thus the internal conflict doesn't actually have, it's not a conflict, it's just a lie. It's just a thing that sits there and simmers. And so because we've crafted this lie that is coming from the big hurt in your character's backstory, we use the external conflict to, like I said before, intentionally put obstacles in their way to test that lie. And that's where it doesn't matter, to the joke we just made, it doesn't matter if I have a sword fight. Okay, a sword fight is just a sword fight. Sure, the stakes are high, someone might die, but whatever, it's fantasy. That happens. Now, if the sword fight means that, you know, they're fighting against their rival from childhood, and it's the first and last opportunity, or like the only opportunity they have to prove that they, you know, have learned all this stuff from studying with their mentor, whatever, you give meaning to the sword fight rather than just bro having sword fight against some random dude, right? So you need a strong external conflict to test that internal conflict. But what Sarah's saying here, the challenge doesn't feel like it would push the characters into the conflict enough. That means that there's an issue with the stakes here. It's not the conflict, it's what's at risk. So the characters, you aren't being mean enough to your characters. I think, Abby, you said that at the beginning, just be meaner to them. You aren't being mean enough. You aren't dangling something in front of them that is so dangerous that it forces them to do this thing, to pursue the external conflict and face these challenges. And dangerous is subjective. Dangerous could mean their family is being held hostage. Dangerous could mean an army is invading. Dangerous could mean that somebody else gets the promotion at work. Right? Like there are different levels of danger depending on the story you're writing, but Sarah, it sounds like your stakes just aren't high enough to push them into the journey they need to experience the growth that they need.
Like I read this one romance book once where it's like it took place at a Ren fair, right? Which is like super awesome and fun, but like, oh, so you get kicked out of the Ren fair and you don't get to come back and work the Ren fair next summer. Big whoop, you know, but really like what's at stake is you're losing the love of your life who also works at the Ren fair. That's like your end. So, you know.
Sarah's got it. There's an aha moment right there. And not just because she said aha.
I want credit. I said be meaner first. Okay,
well, that was a triple punch right there. It took all of us to get that one.
Okay, still another internal question. The internal conflict should be related to the character's lie and big hurt, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it should, because, and actually, I'm going to be honest, I thought about this while walking my dog this afternoon, or this morning. One of the things I want to change for next year is I don't think I have much in the template about the other part that goes with the lie and the big hurt. And intuitively, you know, what's the opposite of a lie? It's the truth, right? And so that's ultimately what your character is pursuing. But when we talk about storycraft theory, a lot of people will combine these 4 elements. We have the big hurt, or whatever, you know, the other less fun people call it, the lie, and then we have the need and the truth. And so you have the traumatic event, you have the flawed philosophy that comes from it, and then you have what they need to resist that lie to ultimately find the truth that replaces the lie in the end of it. So the internal conflict is really the protagonist's journey going from the lie that they believe to finding the truth that replaces the lie. And so, yes, the internal conflict itself is the truth showing up through the external conflict over and over again, being like, I'm the truth. I'm the truth. And they say, no, the truth is dangerous. And so they go back to the lie and they wrap the lie around themselves because the lie keeps them safe and it stops the big hurt from happening ever again until the truth shows up enough and presents itself in such a way that it can't be ignored anymore. And then you have the climax where they finally say, lie, go away. I'm replacing you with this new idea that I have in my head. Long way to say yes.
There's no short way with us.
No.
All right. NJ says, is it possible to make the main external conflict deceptive? Like the problem they think they are fighting is actually something else. External conflict lie.
I like this question.
That's a twist, right? Isn't it kind of a plot twist? I mean,
yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah. Because your character, it's not uncommon for your character's goal to change in reference to new information that's come about. The thing that doesn't really change, though, is their internal conflict, right? The thing that keeps holding them back, that's still there. There's just new things picking away at the lie that they have to face. Mm-hmm.
That might have been the problem with mine when she was having whiplash, is because I was changing the inside piece. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I'm glad you said that. Glad you said that,
Excellent.
Doug.
It took me a second to realize you weren't talking about Stu the Duck. So
no, I was talking about the one that Jeff and I wrote before that we're actually in the middle of revising right now. So, all right. So NJ says, do internal conflicts connect with subplots? And I have to blow my nose while you answer this, but I'm going to step off camera to do it. You're welcome.
Think.
I think ultimately, yes. Maybe not on the surface. It may seem at first that they're a diversion, but I think a good subplot will connect back to that. A good subplot. How do I say this? While they may seem like they're going in different directions, a good subplot will be driven by the conflict of the first plot in some way, even if it doesn't seem so on the surface. But when you resolve one subplot, the solution to that ultimately should drive into the other.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I
can't figure out the good words to use for it, but
so I was thinking today before, like just an hour before we started live here, that there are a lot of people asking about like parallel subplots and if subplots always have to affect the main plot. To which, snarkily in my head, I'm like, no, because I can't tell you how to write, like how you have to write a book. You can do whatever you want. But if the subplot doesn't affect the plot in some way, what is it doing in the story? What's the purpose of it, and why isn't it its own story somewhere else? Like what's the why behind you including this? So subplots don't need to directly intersect the main plot, though they often do. They can indirectly affect it by causing, having cause and effect, where that effect then does something to the main plot. So I say that because NJ's asking, do internal conflicts connect with subplots? Subplots connect with the internal conflict of the protagonist because the protagonist's internal conflict is part and parcel to the plot itself. And so the subplot has to affect the plot, and thus the subplot has to affect their internal conflict in some way, either presenting a new obstacle for them to test their lie against, or giving them something that they need to reject a small part of their lie, stuff like that. But the other way I interpret this question is you can take a secondary character's internal conflict and you can make a subplot with that. That's a great way to come up with an idea for a subplot, and then you tie it back into the protagonist's journey as well.
Got a bunch of subplot questions here.
Good.
Let me pull this one. We'll keep on this. Bond says, question. I have a subplot of the antagonist's journey to find the protagonist and sidekick, but I'm unsure how to weave that in other than just have some chapters following her. Thoughts?
I always have thoughts.
Go for it.
Okay. So one of the like foundational elements of storycraft is that the stakes are always being raised the further into your book you are getting. So I love getting the antagonist's point of view and seeing how they operate in the world and what they're doing. But it's kind of the same thing that I just asked about the subplots. Why are you showing it? So there should always be some kind of effect from a scene that you are writing and including in your book. And so if you're showing the perspective of the antagonist, why are you including it? Is it making things worse for the protagonist, even if indirectly? Is it culminating into something bigger that will be revealed at the end? Either of them are perfectly acceptable and great answers, right? Either have that effect, indirect or directly, or culminate to something bigger. If it's just like, I can't even see another alternative to it, because there's got to be purpose to the scene. Any thoughts from you guys?
Sorry, I just had an idea about Stu the Duck, so I was just jumping over to Dabble to write it down. I lost the thread there for a second. Hey, you take this one.
I don't really have anything to add.
Okay.
I agree with you.
You're so Excellent. Good at this, Doug. You're so good.
I'm so passionate about the 60-day novel challenge and all the stuff in the template. Like, I could yap all day.
And you're lucky
what the question is. Doug's like, I was just thinking about that.
And you're lucky that you didn't get antagonistic Abby and Hank today, because you're just like, yeah, I mean,
yeah,
sounds good to me.
All right, next question. What is the difference between subplots and plots of the story?
That one we covered already.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Earlier.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I forgot to take it off.
I was probably thinking about Stu the Duck. Hi. Let's see. I'm just going down the line. So if we've already done it, we'll nix it out. Subplot is essential to the plot. Without it, the story won't work. Question. Does that mean it's not a subplot? My main subplot is essential to the plot. I think you're just splitting hairs here, Bon.
Yeah. I think
essential. Yeah. Who cares if it's plot or subplot? It's essential.
Yeah, right.
You leave it in,
and right? Everything in your story is essential.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
if you identify a part of your book that's not essential, I would say cut it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's save it for later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a spinoff.
Like,
I could get
subplots. Oh, those are wicked looking.
Yeah.
Oh. I totally stole.
Those look wicked sharp.
Subplots exist to do something to the plot, and so their mere existence makes them essential to the story that you are telling. And if you can remove a subplot and the plot still goes the same way, then the subplot should be removed, to what Hank was saying.
Yeah.
Unless it's a George Martin fantasy book, which means just spin that subplot into 5 more books. No,
so hold on, I want to throw
and then never deliver.
I'm going to throw Bond's follow-up question here. So who gives a hoot if I call it a plot or subplot?
Right.
Technically, so the reason we differentiate them, and like we don't care what you call them, but you need to understand the difference, because the plot ties in those elements of external and internal conflict for the protagonist. So that's essential to understand. And then you need to understand that the stuff other than that, the other instances of conflict, are there to affect that, to bolster it or impede it or alter it in some way. So we don't need you labeling these things, but we need you to understand the impact that each one has and the things that each of them need.
Yeah, because the subplot should add texture and color to your story and add something to it. If it's just a left turn just to extend the story, and you're, going to drive around the block and come back to the same place you were and nothing has changed, then you're just adding words to the story. Your subplot should add to it, should give us a deeper insight to the character, should give them the opportunity to learn something new that will affect the plot. That they're not just side trips that don't add anything. They should always add something and be pushing toward our better understanding of the antagonist or their struggle or their power set or whatever it is.
Yeah. It gives us opportunity to experience more of the world in like speculative fiction genres, without just being unnecessary world building, which is needed in those genres. That's what readers want. That's why we started with genre expectations at the beginning.
Here's an interesting one.
You're welcome, bud.
Should all subplots have conflict? I'm doing a relationship subplot and was planning for it to be a break from all the action and the conflict. If there is no conflict, though,
there's no plot.
There's no plot. Yeah, there's no plot or subplot.
Well, I wish I could like highlight my cursor on the screen here for people to see, but I want to emphasize that last little bit of Ella's question: be a break from all the action and conflict. I want people to understand that conflict does not mean action. It does not mean sword fights. It does not mean car chases. It means that something is getting in the way of a character's goal. And relationships are conflict. Often you can have a relationship that is helping a character get to their goal, in which case it is assisting in the conflict by giving them the resources they need, like skills, love, what have you. But then when there's friction in that relationship as well, that slows down the progression towards the goal. So the relationships are rife with conflict, whether they be an antagonistic conflict or something that is helping the protagonist in their bigger conflicts.
I would say in the book I'm writing, there are some relationship side quests, if you will, that don't feel like there's any conflict there, but the conflict is within Stu, my protagonist, and his girlfriend Audrey is helping him to learn to deal with these things through her showing him unconditional love. And so there's no conflict there except for what's inside Stu already, and she's helping to resolve that conflict. So there is conflict there, just not between the two of them. It's Stu within himself, and she's helping. So yes, it's kind of a respite from the outer conflict, but there's still conflict there. It just is internal conflict.
Mm-hmm.
I always think about the break being like sort of when the pace slows and you get a little more internal. Mm-hmm. That's where sometimes the break happens before you then rush full force into your, sword fight or whatever. So, not that it's not there. It's just a little more interiority, slower pace, longer sentences, bigger paragraphs too. I mean, there's all sorts of things that lead to that.
Well, and can we pause for a second here before we go to the next one? This is going to be helpful for people when they go to think about the plot grid next week and actually mapping out your scenes and your plot lines and whatnot. When we are telling a story, we have two storytelling units. We have scene and we have sequel. And scene is where something happens. That is the dynamic storytelling unit. It's the action part of it. And sequel is the reaction part of it. It's so the car chase happens. That is the scene. That's the action. The sequel comes after, where our bank robbers get to their headquarters. They're panting. They're coming down from their adrenaline high, and they're yelling at one another over who tipped off the cops. Right? It's the emotional reaction to what just happened. And in your story, you're going to be going through these two units over and over again: action and then the emotional reaction. And these are important because the sequel makes the scene worth it. The car chase does not matter without the tension and the arguing and the spitting while you're shouting at one another that follows, right? That gives meaning to the action. The sword fight, as I was saying before, does not matter without the main character getting depressed after because they had to kill their childhood best friend to progress in their journey or something, right? Yeah, I got dark there. I'm sorry. I'm just thinking about Stu the Duck and what he would have to do if he
Okay, I'm just gonna keep my darkness to myself for a second.
But that's important to understand, is that there are those two things. And so as much as I love the fight scenes and the action scenes and whatever you consider action, it's the reaction and the impact it has on the characters and their emotions and their internal journey that is far more important, and you cannot have one without the other.
All right, we got Berlin's question here. Can my other main character's big hurt be directly related to another main character's big hurt effectively? What if it feels washed out? They are brothers, by the way.
Okay. Abby, you haven't answered a question in a while.
Because I don't know the answers to most of these. I'm still riding out my migraine from yesterday, and y'all are you just need to be happy that I'm here and I'm smiling and I'm not drooling.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm upright.
We're so happy you're here with us today, Abby. I don't know if we've told you that.
I can always count on you to lift me up. Thank you, Doug.
I'm not falling for it. Berlin, the answer is yes. Yes, they can. And in fact, what you could do here is juxtapose the two brothers in a way that shows just how differently their reactions can be to the same trauma, and what the fallout of those reactions are on their life. So seeing, like, if Batman had a twin brother who witnessed his parents' death in the alley, Batman becomes a hero. His twin brother maybe becomes the Joker in that universe, right? Same big hurt, completely different way of processing that trauma, and ripples out in their life differently.
I was going to say, my sister and I can't tell you how many times we've walked away from some argument with mom, or I don't know, something that's happened, and I've looked at her and thought, did you seriously just live the same thing I lived? Because we have two totally different points of view about what just happened. So
I paid Sarah to say this.
Thank you, Sarah. Oh, thank you, Doug.
Kidding.
All right. Let's do one of Sarah's questions then. Sarah was so nice to me. How important do you think it is to have a clear idea of plot before you start writing? I mean, I think you kind of need to know the beginning. I think you kind of need to know the end. I mean, maybe not super specific, but I think you got to have a good idea where you're going. Is this going to be resolved positively? Is this going to be resolved negatively? Like, get me in the ballpark sort of thing.
Yeah.
And if you're a pantser, I mean, maybe you only need those 2 points. I personally need maybe 3 points in the middle and 1 point at the end. I kind of got to have because I want to stair step into how to get there.
Yeah.
But what do you guys think? I mean, Hank, you're more pantser, but Doug, you're more plotter.
Yeah, I always know how my story's going to begin, and I always know how it's going to end. I always have a very clear ending point. And I always have a pretty clear point of what's the term? I feel like Abby today. I'm just kind of like firing on 3 cylinders. The inciting incident. I kind of know what that first conflict is going to be. And then I, from there kind of extrapolate, okay, if I'm here and this is kicking things off and I want to wind up here, what needs to happen to make that happen? And then, like you, Abby, I kind of, draw out 3 points along the way. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. And then zoom in and then break down those points. Okay. To get from here to here, I need this, this, and this to happen. And it kind of evolves like that. It's kind of, I have a big conflict, and then what little conflicts are going to move my character from here to here. And then, so you've got this overarching plot, kind of the big idea, and then the smaller ideas that move me through those. That's how I think about it.
So I did this one challenge. I think we called it like plot your novel in 5 days when I was working for Happy Writer, and Tiffany Martin Yates came into the challenge with us. And she had this really fun way of doing this where you kind of had to know your beginning, you had to know your end. And then she had you brainstorm like 40 things that could happen in between those two. And then once you had this big, long list of things, she's like, okay, now what's the one that could go from the beginning to the next point? but like either make it go up or down. Because like her thing was, if you're on this plot line and your story starts, right? Oh, you guys can't see all my hands. Let me get in the middle. And your story starts. Which hand is it? Okay, this one. Does it start up? I'm really struggling today, you guys. Does your story start down? So like, are you starting positive? Because if your character starts in a good place, you need to find something negative to take them to, right? And then you kind of need to go up and then down and then back up again, or vice versa. If your character is starting in a really bad place, your next big event, you might want to move them towards thinking they're going to resolve their problem before you pull the carpet out from under them and you dip them again, and then you bring them back up. And so she was kind of this whole WM sort of thing. And I thought that was kind of an interesting way to look at it. If you're really struggling, just brainstorm a bunch of crap that can happen in between and then see if you can't put it in order. Find the most interesting ones. Can you put it in order? Can you make one drive to the next? Can you make it go good, bad, and then just have dots on a line. I mean, you can just have dots on a line. Like, you don't have to anything really fancy. You can have Post-its on a wall. Like, I mean, I'm not your mom, so like take a crayon, draw a line on your wall, stick your Post-its on there, move them around. So like, you don't have to have a ton of stuff, you guys, before you jump in and get started. You can figure some of it out. When you do start that way, just be prepared for maybe a little bit more of a revision, because you're probably going to have stuff that you've written your way into a corner at some point. You got to write your way out of it. You just have to be prepared to take some of that out. But no one's to say that you have to have a clear idea of all your plot before you start.
I'm going to drop something that might be a hot take, a controversial take, rooted in not a controversial take. I think I fully support anyone being a plotter or a pantser, the most extreme versions of each, or anywhere in between, right? I'm not here to tell you how to write. I am here to say that I think you need to earn your pantser card by learning and actually writing. And this is why I love talking to people who are writing their first book, because I just get to see so much realization in their eyes when we have discussions. Whereas like people have written like 10 books, maybe I'll give you like an aha moment here and there, but like I can't teach you much. But if you haven't written a book yet, you don't have the knowledge that you need to intuitively find your way through something like internal conflict, right? There comes a point where you've digested enough stories, books, TV shows, movies, and you've consumed enough information, like our blogs, workshops, articles, videos on Storycraft, where you have this good understanding of it. And I think that's fantastic, but I don't think that's enough even without having written like a handful of books and have gotten feedback on them. And I think that doesn't mean you have to be the hardest plotter in the entire world until you write 5 books. That's ridiculous. But I think that you need a combination of education and practice and feedback before you go in without knowing how your book's going to end, or without knowing what the major plot beats of your novel are, or what your protagonist's lie is.
So outlining is a skill that you have to learn. And I'm going to throw that out there, because like my first 2 books, I pantsed them. I never got to the end. I threw them away. I don't even know where they are. They're not even like in the proverbial drawer. They are just nowhere, because they were so bad and I didn't know what the heck I was doing. Then I tried to I tried to write a book using an outline, and I wrote the outline, and then I completely ignored it because I don't think I did a very good job on it, and it didn't make much sense to me. I actually had to outline 2 or 3 books before I figured out even an outlining system that worked for my brain. And my outlines don't even really look like outlines. And so it's definitely trial or an error. I mean, but the feedback was key. Finishing a book was key. There are a lot of pieces here, and those people that come out and they publish their debut book, and they're like, my debut book was my first book. They're probably the ones that worked on it for like 10 years, and they got that feedback, and they went back and they revised it and they re-outlined it, and they got more feedback, and then they went back and they revised it and they re-outlined it. I mean, whereas now my debut book, I say it's book number 6, it's book number 8 if we count those 2 that I threw away. So it's a process that you have to learn, and you have to learn what works for you. That's the other piece. What works for Doug doesn't work for me. I would get totally lost in Doug's plot grid. I'd be like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, and then I'd shut down.
And what works for Doug for this book is different than what worked for Doug the last book and the book before, because I grow every time, and I learn new things, and I become more comfortable, and I still outline more than most people do, but I outline less than I did last time. Though for this one, I'm intentionally outlining more, so next week when we show off our plot grids, I can show people what that might look like.
Can I say something about outlining real quick?
No. No, please go ahead, Hank.
I love you, Hank. Don't listen to Doug.
Thank you, Abby. Thank you.
I'm the villain today.
I'm covering Doug's face so I don't have to look at him while I talk.
Me too.
Outlining is such a provocative topic, because everyone, when you say that word, everyone brings something with them. And for a lot of people, I have discovered that outlining for them is just a way for them to anticipate problems that are going to come out and to think through them. So when you said that you wrote an outline and then threw it away and wrote a lot of people are like that. A lot of people will go through the outline, understand the logic trail, and then they don't have to worry about that because they have the solution to those problems already worked, and then they can just write, and they don't have to go reference, okay, this is the thing I have to write to. I do know some people that like look at their outline and say, okay, this is the scene I have to write today. But I also know people that have pretty detailed outlines and then never look at them, because in their mind, they've already solved those problems. They know where they're going, and they just, the answers are there when they anticipate them. And so outlining doesn't have to be this rigid thing. It's just a way to help you anticipate potholes before you hit them in the dark because you couldn't see them.
There's also
like Kelly Barnhill
outlining.
What now?
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Abby.
I was going to say Kelly Barnhill, who won like a Newbery Prize for kids or whatever, right? For A Girl Who Drank the Moon. She said she wrote the book, and then like there were all these problems with it, and she went back and she wrote it again, and there were all these problems with it. Third time, I think, was the book that finally stuck, if I'm not mistaken. But she wrote it from memory after she had worked out all of those problems in the first, couple iterations. And so,
and I was just adding on, there's creativity in plotting as well. I think there's so many people get scared of the word plotting or planning because they think it's restrictive. It's not. But what I want to point out a couple comments here. Like Star's been talking about how she has changed how she outlines through while working on this latest novel, and Ella saying I'm an extensive plotter, and then AR saying first timer at writing here, which is awesome. But I do want to highlight, not just to toot our own horn up here. It's so weird that things come up as I do the homework and the story starts to create itself, which like I think it was a couple weeks ago, someone was asking about, like, in the template, there's no actual step where we say, okay, and start mapping out your individual scenes, and this should happen in each scene, and you need to link every character arc beat to a scene here or there. The way that things are built in the template and in this challenge is that it makes you think about things that then organically connect to other things in your story. And so the story starts to take shape in your mind as you think about these different elements of storytelling. So we, like in the first week, we thought about high level brainstorming for the plot, but really high level stuff. Where does it start? What's a couple things that happen in the middle? How does it end? And what genre am I writing in? And then we got to know our characters. And as you got to know your characters and specifically their lie, you realize, okay, this is the kind of the story I want to push them along. These are the things that I can do to test them and to make them feel bad and then make them feel good and make them grow. And then this week we're talking about the external conflict that you can use to do that, and their actual internal conflict that they go on, and the subplots you can layer onto it. It's all like it was Shannon, I highlighted this earlier when Abby, you were talking about your outlining. This meme, I think it's the guy from oh my god, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I know exactly which one you're talking about.
And that's
Charlie.
and that's exactly what this challenge is, though, because it's not linear, because it's all these ideas that are coming together. So it's less chaotic than the meme.
That's a murder wall, I think is what they call it.
I think it is, yeah. Or is it murder or conspiracy or both? But that's the idea, is that everything starts to connect, and then it's next week where we start pulling it together, and you can plot it on the plot grid as much or as little as you want.
Fun fact. In Murder Town, Stu Weber has a murder wall in the corner of the bookstore and starts to freak out the customers.
It would freak me out, I think, if I walked into the local bookstore.
Yeah.
Oh, Bridget here. I love planning. I hate outlining. It's fine.
And you know what? I think those are two statements that you can hold without contradiction.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we only got a few minutes left here.
Okay, let's do this one. What if you're doing a negative arc?
I'm finding an article to link to right now.
I don't know that I've ever written a negative arc.
I don't know that I have either.
Most stories aren't negative; they're almost all positive, because they're depressing, right?
Yeah.
I know, like, very few people. I remember when I was watching Avengers Infinity War in theaters, like the very first time I saw it. And, sorry for the spoilers, but it's been out for however long now.
You haven't seen it by now.
Yeah, it ends with Thanos snapping his fingers and wiping out half of everyone, right? And for a decade and a bit, we had been conditioned by Marvel to be like, okay, the heroes are going to win in the end, and then they don't win. And the movie theater was like tumbleweed silent, right? Because we aren't expecting an ending like that. But it was so like chilling. Like the emotions that you feel are not good emotions, but you feel a lot with them. So I'm going to drop a link in the chat here where I think it's our pal Abby with an I goes over how to write a negative arc, because there are different kinds of negative arcs. And if you are a Dabble Academy member, we're going to be talking about character arcs, including negative arcs, in January when we do our workshops that month. But yeah, Abby outlines the specifics of a negative arc. We also have our character development course over at Dabble Academy that you can access, and we have a lesson on negative arcs as well. Bridget cried when Thanos snapped his fingers. Fair.
I was waiting for Doug to say he cried.
I didn't cry, but like I've cried at other stuff. It's not like I'm like, oh, I don't cry.
Get verklempt.
No, but that part of me knew another movie was coming, of course. But another part of me, I was just like, wow. Like actual goosebumps. Like I almost feel the little chill now just thinking about how I felt then.
So you're telling me you didn't walk into that movie doing that thing that all writers do, and you like call it from the first scene? You're like, if Thanos is gonna snap his fingers and kill half the people here, like, because that's like
I didn't think the movie was gonna end like that. So like in like when we watch something as writers, especially as editors, you identify story beats so easily. You identify structure so easily. And if I were to think that was going to happen, I would think that's pre-climax, that's Dark Night of the Soul kind of stuff. And then the next 20 minutes is spent fixing everything. They just fade to black after that. After I think it was it was Captain America that said we lost. And then it's just done. And I'm like,
yeah,
come on. This isn't what Marvel does.
Get off my lawn.
And is there any coincidence that they've not made a good movie since?
They have, okay, this is a separate conversation. They've made good movies since. They haven't. That was the culmination of, like I said, over a decade of movie going experience, right?
How do you top that? I
You
mean,
can't. And
You
that's
don't.
then they keep introducing new stuff, but like there have been good movies since then. The Guardians movie, Shang-Chi was a great movie. I'll Die on This Hill, Eternals was a good movie, but should have been a TV series.
Never saw it.
It's fun. It deserved better than it got.
well, we're
Okay,
at
let's do
90
one more
minutes.
question.
Do you want more? All
One
right,
more
you pick
question.
one.
Hank, why don't you pick one?
Okay. What about this one?
I was just eyeing that one.
This seems spicy. Question: my MC's lie is that she'll never be anything but a tool. Book 1 affirmed that. Book 2, she's embracing it. So I can get her down to a negative arc. Does that sound like it can work? Yeah. Especially if it's book 2 of a trilogy. That's kind of where you want to be. You know, that's
your midpoint moment right there, right?
Yeah, that's Dark Night of the Soul, big time there. And then book 3, you know, you can start on a low point and build up and you know, go to that climax.
We're not telling you what to do, Athena. You can take her even darker if you want.
Yeah, sure. I mean, this is your idea. I think it's a great idea. I'm not telling you what to do. I think you've hit upon something that, you know, but but make sure that book 2 ends in a satisfying way, in the same way that Doug talked about Infinity War being dismal yet satisfying in some weird way, because we didn't expect that, and it made us feel something, even if it wasn't something that we wanted to feel. And we all left that movie theater with a knot in our gut going, oh, I wonder what they're going to do to get out of this. You know, that's, we all want to feel something. It doesn't always have to be happy, but you know.
Do you folks have a few more minutes? Because I'm looking at our remaining questions, and if we say no more questions can be submitted now, can we just knock out the remaining ones so people can leave satisfied?
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Okay, but we're going to put a time limit on our talking. 2 minutes a question. Okay. Let's do it.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to.
Yeah, you do it. You're the master of questions today, Abby.
Here we go. I'm just going right down the line.
Speed round.
Okay.
Okay. Last week's question, but how to deal with the big lie in a trilogy. I want the main character to overcome it in the end of the last book, but what about the endings of book 1 and 2?
Okay. So you have a couple options here, but the ultimate thing is that you need to have the lie and the truth spectrum be something that is wide enough for them to have growth or change or corruption or dissent without completely resolving it. So if the lie is that I'm better off on my own, then at the end of book 1, they could only be successful by going at the big bad guy with a team. But then afterwards, they have this moment where they say, okay, it's so dangerous out there, I've got to venture off on my own to protect these people now. And then book 2 starts with them out in the wilderness killing monsters by themselves, what have you. And then book 2, maybe it's a little bit of a backtrack. Maybe they actually get dragged down by somebody and it gets reinforced that they should be doing this solo, but doing that also gets someone they care about hurt. End of book 2. Then book 3, you finally have that full come to the truth moment in the climax where they have to realize they are too weak to do this by themselves and they need the friends they made along the way to help them. It's all about pacing and breaking up that bigger lesson into smaller chunks.
I was going to say, you guys always make it about some fantasy thing, but then I realized Beacon's avatar was a dragon, so you're probably right on track.
That's wholly why I did it, not because I write fantasy and think about it all the time.
To Stu the Duck talk.
Yeah, well, so he quacks and people don't understand him, but he narrates in his internal and tells you what.
That's so cute.
Thank you.
So that's not fantasy?
It would be low fantasy. It's not like dragons and stuff.
He's also made a blood
loses
pact
his
with the demon.
No blood pacts in this, people. Come on.
Where do you think that lunchbox came from?
He made a blood quack.
I did work a couple puns into this one though, Hank.
That's
so
free, by the
please
way.
do that.
You can use blood quack.
I will. All right. Marilyn says, constant reference to the big lie. Is there always a big lie and always a big hurt?
Can I say something real quick before we answer this?
Yeah.
Can we stop you?
No. This is purely like I don't think I ever actually refer to it as the big lie in the template or the lessons. This is just something that's translated and like it's like the Mandela effect or something. Everyone thinks that's what I just call it, the lie. So
not anymore.
Not anymore. Now it can be the big lie and the big hurt. You know what? It kind of works, and it differentiates it from. I think it's Cam Weiland who made Ghost and the Lie, or who coined Ghost and Lie. Anyway, no, I think we answered this last week. But to reinforce, no, there doesn't have to be. In the absence of a big hurt and the lie that is formed from it, you want your character to have a major flaw that you can still pick at with the external conflict and still drives their internal conflict. It's just juicier. It's just like, what did I say? I think I said you can have a salad or you can have a dressing without, or a salad without dressing, but why would you?
Yeah.
Like,
that is exactly what you said last week.
Yeah. And that's such a reductive way of saying it, and I'm doing it to be sassy. So don't take it offensively, because you can have a character that does not have a traumatic moment in their backstory and a lie that results from it. But they need that big flaw in place of it. It's just the lie is so much better. I've used fodder like 5 times this stream, but fodder for storytelling. I'm aware of my own flaws.
Did you? Oh, I thought
Hank
did
that.
You just had a Thanos moment.
All right.
All right. Berlin says, can a pretty basic conflict still make a compelling story? How can it still be an epic quest without massive stakes, at least at first? I mean, that's the whole cozy fantasy, right? I mean, cozy fantasy is no epic quest, though. It's usually small
it's usually
town
like
orcs
trolls baking
in a coffee shop. Yeah.
Yeah. It I saw someone posted over on W Campus that they're convinced writing epic fantasy is easier than writing cozy fantasy. And I can't remember the details of the post, but that it made me chuckle, because to each their own. And honestly, it might be harder for me to write cozy fantasy than epic fantasy, given my proclivity to certain themes and ideas. But stakes are subjective. And
so
if you're writing something, if you're writing a series, for example, like a trilogy, the way I always picture it, and this doesn't have to be literal, but the threat in the first book is local. The threat in the second book is like countrywide, maybe, and the threat in the third book is a world-destroying event. And again, doesn't have to be literal, but that's the elevation of things. But in that first book, when it's just the town that's in danger, that's still dire for the character. That's still the end of the world for the character, just not the end of the world, right? So you can tell a basic conflict can still have high stakes if they're personal enough and if they are meaningful enough. Anything to add?
Not really, because it's that personal piece that's I think key, and how they're making meaning from what's happening. That's what keeps you involved as a reader. So.
Yeah. And without those, you can have the most devastating, world-ending threat out there, and who cares as a reader? Like, yeah, it's kind of exciting, but if you don't have a connection, like an emotional element to it, doesn't matter. Goes back to things we've been talking about this whole stream.
What did I say last week, Hank? Like when Ben Affleck was trying to save the world in Armageddon, but really he just wanted to get back to Liv Tyler, sort of thing. I mean, You've got to have that one piece that makes it personal, even though it's everything at stake. So, I mean, but that's epic. So
yeah. And you can reduce that whole story, speaking of Armageddon, to a guy trying to earn his place with the girl. And in that case, he's got to convince Bruce Willis that he's good enough for Bruce Willis's daughter, who's Liv Tyler. And that's the entire story. Yeah, they fly off to to a rock in space and have to drill a hole in it and plant a nuclear bomb. That happens. And Bruce dies. Spoilers, 25-year-old movie. But it's all about a guy trying to get the girl. That's the entire story. He doesn't think he's good enough. He's got to prove he's good enough. That's the whole story.
Boom. End of it.
Yep.
Okay. Doug's going to like this question because it is about the plot grid. My issue is I don't know what needs its own column and where to put the cards.
Right. I started this one because I just wanted to say that this is what we're talking about next week. So the plot lines are flexible. You can make them whatever the heck you want. And then the way they line up with scenes, they'll just be available in that scene in the notes pane in the right nav bar. But our lesson on Monday has to do with the plot grid. And then on Thursday next week, we are going to be showing off our different plot grids. And if Robert's still in the chat, I want Robert here for that show too, if he can be, to show off his.
And you were about to see 3 very different ways to use it.
Mm-hmm.
I use it at its most basic.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got Stu the Duck in a plot grid to show off. So
I'm excited.
You better bring
you showed last week, I think. It's worth going back for anyone who hasn't seen it. But last week you showed the one with 2 columns, essentially, the what happens and why it matters. Mm-hmm. I showed off my 60-day plot grid from last year that had 8 columns in it or something. And I know I've seen Hank's before, and I think, Hank, you went a little more into it last year than you normally do as well.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to see yours this year.
I'm going to show out and I'm going to have 14 columns.
Oh, okay. I'll be sure to max at 13. So.
No.
All right. Last question. When you're doing a series, where do you split your structure at?
We kind of just answered this one. Okay. Right. But
if it's, the epic piece.
Yeah. Yeah. And think about, like, the stakes are always going up. The characters, their internal conflict will have forward and backward progress until it's resolved in the end. You can look at a trilogy from a 3-act structure point of view and just kind of layer it over the entire series. But yeah, it's other than that, I mean, we do have a series outlining workshop recording for W Academy that comes with a series template for Dabble that is amazing.
Wind it up.
So thank you, Bridget, for giving me this question. But yeah, it's focus on the characters' growth and their journey, and that will then you apply the external to that, which is what we've been talking about this whole time. The external conflict to that, you're just doing it over a larger span with more back and forth progress.
All right, there we go, my friends. We hit
awesome.
'em. We did
awesome. It. Thanks for joining us, everybody. If you have any questions, or if you're watching this afterwards and you've made it till the end, be sure to leave them in a comment down below or over in our community in the 60 days discussion area, where you can always leave a chat and people are always answering and chatting there, and we're checking it out all the time. Do we have anything tomorrow for folks? Any shows or anything?
No.
I don't think so. Ooh, a day off. Well,
a
day off from streaming.
If you put a question in, because there's so much activity there, tag one of the 3 of us or all 3 of us, and then that way we know it's going to get answered. We're going to see it easier. So
yeah.
And is anybody enjoying the short videos that we've been posting each morning? That's what I'm doing tomorrow, is trying to finish up my November videos. So
I'm going to be doing that too.
They've been a lot of fun for us to make, and I think they've been going really well. So I hope everybody's enjoying those.
Mm-hmm. I've been watching them every day because I haven't seen, like, I know which ones I did, but I haven't seen yours or Robert's, or so I'm excited. I enjoy seeing them every morning when I wake up.
Right,
yeah, everyone seems to love them. So we have the lesson dropping on Monday. about theme, the plot grid, and then goal setting and mindset for writing in November. We have sprints Tuesday through Thursday. Next week at the regular time, we have our live show next Thursday. And then on next Saturday, it's November 1st, and we start writing. Oh, wow. That's what, 9 days away?
9
Get excited,
days
everyone.
away.
Thanks for
Oh, yeah.
joining us. We will see you all next week.
Bye, everybody.